And before I go to my actual case presentation, I'm from Kerala, and I lived in UK from 2005. I got the general social care registration in 2005 as well. However, I couldn't find a job for several years. My registration has also transferred to the HCPC, the healthcare practitioner, HCPC. However, even with those kind of background and registration, I was unable to come into the social work ladder. This is mainly due to the lack of knowledge, especially about the legal framework, the other legislative pieces, etc. I was unable to get into that ladder. So I was doing several jobs in the community, and I did the support workers job in a residential home for a couple of years. Then I promoted to a team manager. Then after a couple of working in the residential setting, I went to the community support work team as well. Then I was a team manager there as well, a couple of years. However, even with those kind of experience and knowledge, I wasn't unable to get into the social work ladder. Then eventually I got a contact with Boban. Then Boban trained me to get into this job. I still remember all these information, all those training, etc., which absolutely given me the wonderful opportunity to get into the social work ladder. To be honest with everyone, I can completely assure that without Boban's involvement, I would be still doing the job of a support worker, because there are still a lot things to learn. And even if we have certain level of skills we have generated from our social work training and experience from India, that is really not good enough if you are looking to get into the social work ladder, because you need to know about the legal framework, the legislations and the procedures, etc. We need to apply when especially when we go for an interview process. So after completing the social work bridging program, I wasn't quite confident at all whether I was able to come into a social worker's job at all. And even after I had the interview scheduled, I called Boban and I was asking question, Boban, yeah, is it possible for me to do it? And he was saying, of course you can do it. If I can do it, you can also do it. So just to give the assurance to everyone, if I can do it, you can also do it, because Boban is a very resourceful person. So please take part in Boban's lessons. Take everything seriously, because if you have a huge backlog of assignments, you will struggle. Then eventually you will see you are not able to cope up with the training processes, because you also have family and other private commitments. So you need to balance all these things. However, if you have the right drive to get into that position, I can guarantee Boban can lead you to that direction. Absolutely. So all you need to do, this is based on purely my experience. I'm not a promoter of social work bridging at all. I'm not getting any rewards from Boban or anyone at all. This is purely my experience. So take it as an opportunity. And I was missing for 15 years, because I was doing several jobs in UK, without having that kind of input, because I didn't know where I need to go. I applied for several jobs, but no one even called me for an interview, because I didn't know how to present a case, how to write the CV, etc. I didn't have any knowledge whatsoever. But Boban gave me all those skills, all those knowledge. So take it as an opportunity. You are all very lucky based on my experience, because you may not spend 15 years in UK before coming to the social work bridging program. So take it as an opportunity. Go with everything what Boban says. You will be a social worker under a year. This is why I'm saying this. I can guarantee as well, based on my experience. Right. Okay. So I am cautious about the time limitations, because there is time overrun. So like I explained, I work for a team called Discharge to Assess Follow-up, which means we take cases who are discharged from hospital. So I would like to present a case, which is one of my regular cases, but there are several things involved with it. So I try to explain everything as simple as possible. But if you have any difficulty to understand whatever I am saying, please ask me questions, because questioning is very important. If you are not developing the skill of asking questions, you are not getting the information you are required to have as a part of assessment. So you must develop your questioning skills, which are very important. So the case I am going to present here is about a couple. I am going to call them David and Mary. They are not their actual names. They used to live in a sheltered accommodation, and there wasn't any package of care in place. And these are elderly couple, and Mary has advanced stages of dementia. However, David was providing all the support required for Mary, and they are very private couple. They don't have any relationship with the outside world. They don't have any children together as well. However, David has children with his previous marriage, but there are no active contacts in place. So one day, David decided to visit Mary's brother, in which he believes that gentleman is living somewhere in Kent. This is not the real name either. So David and Mary had a little conversation about to have that visit. Then, in one particular afternoon, they took their car out to visit Mary's brother, who they believe living in Kent. However, this journey has went to the wrong direction. So David has driven his car to Liverpool. This is also not the real name. So they got lost, and they parked their car in the driveway of a private person. So they spent the entire night in the car. So in the morning, the owner of the property has found the couple who are in the car, and they are very confused. So this gentleman has asked a couple of questions of the couple, but they were not able to answer those questions. So he called the police, and the police has attended, and the police called the ambulance. So they have taken to a hospital in Liverpool, again not the real location, and they spent a couple of days in one of the hospitals in Liverpool, and later transferred to our hospital, which I am based to. So the hospital discharge team has assessed their needs, and they decided both of them lacks capacity to make the decision on their discharge destination. So without going through the Office of Public Guardian to search for any formal arrangements in place, they have involved an IMCA, which is Independent Mental Capacity Advocate, in the decision-making process. So they made the best interest decision to discharge this couple to a care home, and the case has handed over to our team to follow up. This is the background of the case. Anyone has any questions to ask about the background?
Yeah, regarding the background, I would like to ask
Yeah.
one thing.
Yeah.
When the neighbor, sorry, the gentleman called to the police, why
Yeah.
police asked the support from NHS and why they were in a hospital, or instead of police can call local authority to support them, right?
It depends. That is the police discretion. If they feel the person has needs, especially when the gentleman found them in the car, they were confused. So the police do not have any professional expertise to determine what are the person's needs, because they were appearing very confused. So this would be the reason, I assume, the police called the ambulance. And also, if they feel there are any underlying issues, like they are shivering, they are not looking very well physically, etc., then the police has the legal duty to inform the ambulance. So police called the ambulance, then the ambulance took them to the hospital.
Okay, okay. And they admitted hospital for almost 1 week, right?
I don't exactly have the information, but I think, yeah, they spent over a week, because
Okay.
that was their local hospital. So that hospital has transferred this couple where they are located to.
Okay.
And that's why I got this case.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah. Anything else anyone got?
So until this incident happens,
Yeah.
only the wife was identified as having dementia. I mean,
Good question. Good question. Yes, there wasn't any clear information, even in the hospital records as well, about the gentleman. However, I do believe this gentleman had delirium, because he was also confused. Because I checked his GP records and hospital records, everything, but there isn't any information suggesting he has any issues of cognition, which means dementia or anything which is a kind of long-term condition. So I do believe he has delirium at the time when he took his his car out for a drive. However, I do not have any evidence to prove or disprove. This is the background of the case. I'm going to how I manage this case. However, if you know the background of the case, it will be beneficial for you to get the information and how I did manage the case. This is why I'm just asking if anyone has any questions about the background. No? Okay, so I am going to the case allocation process because whenever we get a case from the hospital, which has which has allocates to our case, one of the social workers needs to follow up those cases, and obviously our team is relatively inexperienced, and I am the most experienced one of our team currently. So this case has given to me, and the manager called me one day and explaining we have a complex case. And the complexity is they have no family, there are no such relationship available. So this would take some time as well. I said, yeah, I can take this case, but you need to allow me enough time to work on this because this will take time. So we are required to make an initial contact of the person or the care home or the family within 3 working days. So as soon as I got the case, within a couple of days time, I made a call to the care home where the couple was admitted, collected some background information. Then the primary challenge was the care home has already started the one-to-one support for the lady because the lady has advanced stages of dementia. And while this lady was admitted at hospital, she was on 14 hours of one-to-one. Basically, whenever she is awake, the ward was providing one-to-one support while she was at hospital. But however, this was a measure to prevent the risk of falls, not for managing her behaviors at all. However, when she moved to the care home environment, she has started to demonstrate difficult behavior. So without getting the social services prior authorization, they have started the one-to-one support, and that was also 14 hours, which means all day long. So the difficulty is according to our team practice, the one-to-one support needs to be authorized in advance. For authorizing the one-to-one support, my line manager cannot authorize it. My manager's manager, who is called the head of the integrated care, she has the authority to authorize one-to-one support. Again, this support was already in place. So I collected the care logs, also collected the behavior charts, all those things as an evidence to prove the need for one-to-one support. Then the head of the integrated care has authorized one-to-one support on a weekly basis. So I also checked the GP records, all the hospital documentation, everything, just to get more knowledge and information about the lady she who has dementia, and also the gentleman. There wasn't any information about any cognitive issues whatsoever. So I made a visit. Sorry, before I making a visit, there was an independent mental capacity advocate, an IMCA, was involved with the discharge process. So I contacted that person, then had a discussion about the need to do the follow-up actions and go for the long-term care planning, etc. He said he can visit the couple in couple of weeks time. However, he didn't give me a time. Then I said, right, okay, this is quite urgent, so I cannot leave it as it is. So I'm going to explore the need for a mental capacity assessment for the couple as a starting point. Then he said, yeah, you can go ahead. Then I visited the couple at the care home and completed the mental capacity assessment. And for doing the mental capacity assessment, for each and every cases, there needs to be a decision to be made. So for this case, the decision they need to make is to meet their care and support needs and their long-term accommodation. This is the decision they need to meet. So whenever I did the mental capacity assessment for David, the husband, there was the indications of fluctuating capacity. So I was very reluctant to stick with the assessment, considering the element of fluctuating capacity. But his wife Mary, she clearly lacks capacity due to the progress of dementia. So I fed back about the assessment to the IMCA involved as well. He said he would be visiting in couple of weeks weeks too, but that did not happen. So whenever we have completed a mental capacity assessment and that person lacks capacity to make a particular decision at a particular time, we check with the Office of Public Guardian, who keeps any details of any formal agreements in place, like a lasting powers of attorney. There is a form which is called OPG 100. OPG 100. You can find it on Google. So whenever we have such a need, we fill out the OPG 100 form and request the Office of Public Guardian to get any information about any formal arrangements are in place, like a lasting powers of attorney, deputyship, anything like that. So when I went to the Office of Public Guardian, they gave me a reply saying there are lasting powers of attorney registered for both of them. However, when the hospital discharge team has considered the discharge decision process, they did not went to the Office of Public Guardian. They shouldn't be doing that. However, I did that. Then I got the information. Then the next challenge came out because David and Mary has no understanding about who are their attorneys, who are having the powers of attorney. However, David was Mary's attorney on one side, and Mary was David's attorney as well. Beyond that, there were two people have the powers of attorney for them as well. They were also a couple. So there is another option for getting the information. You can do a special request to Office of Public Guardian, explaining about the circumstances that there is an active powers of attorney is registered. However, the people who has donated the attorney has no ability to understand who are the attorneys, and also there are no active contacts in place. So I went to the Office of Public Guardian again, explaining the scenario and requested to give the personal details of the attorneys. Sometimes they take it, sometimes they don't. But luckily for this case, they have given me with the contact details of his attorneys. So I, whenever I got those details, I spent a lot of time on our system to have a check because there wasn't any phone numbers or anything at all. So it's quite difficult to chase who are the attorneys. Luckily, after spending a couple of hours, I found a match on our system because Mary's attorney was was registered on our system. So as soon as I got the details, I attempted to make a call. Luckily, his phone number has not been changed. I called them. I introduced myself, explaining about the scenario. Unfortunately, this gentleman had terminal cancer. He is not in a position to travel. Then I explained, I don't really need you directly involved. However, I need your views about that making that decision of discharge from the care home or for long-term planning. After a couple of days discussion and waiting, one day he called me saying, right, okay, my wife is able to transport me to the care home. Then I said, right, that will be absolutely helpful because I can make the best interest decision meeting. Then I made that best interest decision meeting with the involvement of his attorney. Then both of them has, because David obviously has Mary's attorneyship as well. And before I did that meeting, I did a second mental capacity assessment for David, considering the fluctuating capacity. Then this assessment has done with another fellow social worker from my team, because sometimes we do double up visit. Say for example, if the case is too complex, or if there is an element of fluctuating capacity, we have a team practice of doing mental capacity with double up. If you are the allocated social worker, you will be leading the assessment. However, the other social worker who is coming with you as the backup, like, she will be observing that, and she will also record her professional opinion on the system. This will protect you, and this will also give more credible information about the case you are dealing with. So within this time, the care home has issued 28 days notice to move this couple. because the lady's behaviors were getting too complicated. However, during my second mental capacity assessment, David has established bit capacity to make the decision. So whenever someone has the capacity to make the decision, the person has the legal right to make the decision, whichever he wants to. So he has decided to go back to his own home. However, he has decided, I'm not leaving this care home without my wife. So local authority has the duty to make sure anything we can do to leave them together. And this was the challenge because the lady was on constant 14 hours of one-to-one support. And I was concerned about how David is going to manage at his home because we are unable to provide full-time care at home at all. However, during the discussion process with David, who has regained his ability after the delirium, he was explaining me how he was managing Mary's needs at home. Then when his attorneys were involved as well, they were also saying, even if they don't have any contacts for at least 3-4 years, they were telling me that David was, even if Mary has advanced stages of dementia, her dementia has originated several years ago. So David was managing her as well. However, I wasn't 100% sure about how he is able to manage Mary's behaviors. So I decided to spend almost half a day with the couple in the care home, get more information about how David is able to manage Mary's needs at home. So they were very casual couple. Even if Mary is completely confused, she has behavioral difficulties as well. Whenever Mary comes to David, David tells her something. She completely follows up. So I got an impression that if we send Mary back to home, even if the risks are quite there, David has certain kind of ability to manage Mary's needs. So during the follow-up conversations, I have offered formal care support for Mary at home. However, David is a very proud man. He was so reluctant to accept that support. Then I said, David, it's going to be very difficult because Mary's needs are increased. So the local authority has the duty of care to manage the risk involved. So reluctantly, he has accepted morning support, which is 45 minutes care call. Someone comes to help Mary to change her dress, have a shower, give her medication, etc. Then in the evening, someone do almost the same. Then on top of that, we have offered 2 hours support a week for David to go out and about to do his shopping, and the carer will be covering Mary due to that during that time. So David accepted it. Then we have made arrangements to find out a package of care. I got it in a couple of days' time. Then David has not have enough food or anything else all while he go back to home. Luckily, the care home manager has offered to buy that food. David agreed to pay the money back into it. So I successfully moved those couple to their own homes, and I have done an initial review in almost 2-3 weeks time since I sent them back to home. Everything was working very well, and quite satisfied about the result I got. Still, the risk is there. However, when the case has handed over to the locality team, it would be their responsibility to follow up. So considering the legal element and the complexities of this case, the only thing I wish to share today is nothing about the CARE Act, it's nothing about the Mental Capacity Act. It's all about the Human Right Act. Because under Article 8, every person in UK has the basic human right of private life. This is very important. So whenever you start to practice as a social worker, regardless of whatever the legalities or the legal implications are involved, you need to look at the basic human right. Human right Article 8 is very important. This is right for private life. So this basic right nearly overrides every other pieces of legislation if they are involved. So you need to be very mindful about the Human Rights Act because that is a basic right. This is my case. So you have every opportunity to ask me questions because this is very important from your point of view.
Amazing. And, you know, when you explained, the process stuff and the person, they, where I got so much, touched by the practice is that your observation of David and Mary, and Mary actually listened to David, and David has got certain ability.
Yeah.
And that observation, and you spent half day over there.
Yeah.
That made such an amazing. And you also mentioned about it is not about the act, and I think it is more than the Human Rights Act. The practice level there is that your level of observation, how their dynamics work within the family, what is that he wanted to achieve, and you managed to bring them at home, and it worked relatively good. And it doesn't always happen, and because professionals may think that, oh, because of this happened, that happened, and the risk, or what would in case they wander, because they wandered in the car, and again that is a very accidental self-harm. They have been driving through the motorway. Are you letting them to
200
go
miles.
there at home? It's not easy to come to that conclusion and that practice and establishing that, and such an amazing. That is what really touched me.
Yeah, I had a couple of conversations with my manager as well, because I was also concerned about the risk. But my manager was instructing, you need to look at the risk. However, on the other hand, you need to look at the benefits as well. And she was also telling me about the quality aspect of life rather than quantity. What she was suggesting, even if you send that couple back to home for a week, they survive, that will give the opportunity to live together. Because the problem with David is not eligible for residential care at all, because basically he has no care needs. So I would be separating those couple. They were living together for 40 years. They don't have any active family at all. So the issue is, if they are going to be separated, I don't think David is going to survive. So basically, I have no other choice. If this is the only option to send marriage for a long-term residential care, they would be separating. And David was so adamant. Whenever I had the meeting, David, after the second mental capacity assessment, David has the capacity. Then I told David, you are a free man. You can go anywhere. I'm canceling the dolls as well. I'm going to call the dolls team. They will cancel it because you have the capacity. You are a free man. You can go home even today. He said, no, I'm not going to go home. I want my wife. I will try everything for my wife to get her back into my home. So for me, this is quite challenging because the risk is quite high, because the lady is on 14 hours of one-to-one support while she was in hospital and while she was at care home as well. So that's a massive risk, because she is very temperamental. She can do anything. She cannot be left alone for even a minute, because she can do anything. So the risk is quite high. However, I made a David for the carers match Norfolk, which provides support for the carers to meet their needs. They also do the carers assessment, etc. But he refused. On top of that, I made a referral for the assistive technology, which we very often do. A couple of other presenters were also saying. So they installed some sort of alarm system at home. So say they also put the care line in place, which they have provided the pension alarm and risk alarm for the couple, just in case if they fall or anything like that. So I explored those options as well. But for me, the case wasn't quite challenging, because I get several cases similar to that. But the decision was so hard to make, because it's difficult to balance the risk and benefit. That was the challenge.
I totally agree. I know that people are totally agree with that, because when David said that I want to go home, especially with this wife who is confused, and he himself was confused. Currently, he is not at his own
for a time,
home, and he wants to go. And how they will describe their mental capacity, sometimes there is, and
Yes.
practice that David likes capacity, and because David, unable to weigh up the risk. If he goes, he will be still driving. And I know that with establishing the capacity and supporting, it's not an easy job and amazingly done. And I believe that you've done a review and they were, things were going
Yeah,
well
yeah,
with
it did. Yeah, it
them.
was working very well. So far, so
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. And Prasant, you raised your hand. Yeah, you are on mute, Prasant.
Thanks for your wonderful presentation.
Thank
It
you.
might not be considered, but just a question. I just want to ask about. I'm okay with Mary, but I'm a little bit confused about David, because
Yeah, yeah,
you already mentioned he has fluctuated mental capacity. So there is
yeah.
a possibility of getting more confused state in future, or
The reason I have mentioned about the fluctuating capacity was probably, I can't really say, probably due to the presence of delirium, and this has happened during my initial visit and initial assessment. Like you are rightly saying, there wasn't any clear information proving David has delirium, because I did all the checks with the GP records, with the hospital records, everything, but there wasn't anything. But this is the importance of the experience, because you work with the people for a period of time, especially with the elderly people. You make that kind of professional judgment certain times, even if, because we get several cases, there are no formal diagnosis of dementia, because many GPs are not very keen to make their diagnosis. However, based on my professional judgment after the initial conversation or the information I collected, information from family, information from hospital, etc., I have a look at about the possibility of any cognitive decline if there is no formal diagnosed dementia. So with having that information, if I believe, even if there is no formal diagnosis of cognitive decline, we go for the mental capacity assessment. Because sometimes the input is not quite there. We get several cases like that. There are no formal diagnosed dementia, no formal organic disorders like dementia or anything similar. We get many of them. However, when you get a case and you reasonably believe, under the considering the principles of the Mental Capacity Act, you think, in your opinion, in your judgment, this person lacks capacity, then you believe so. Then, after you put all these efforts into place, then you go for the full mental capacity assessment. With David's case, even if there was no formal diagnosis of cognitive decline, anything like that, when I had the initial conversations with him, his answers were not corresponding, because I asked him about the circumstances leading to go to the Liverpool. I mean, it's not the right real name. He wasn't unable to give me the clear answers about why he has decided to go to Liverpool, why he took his wife who has challenging behaviors, and why did you attempt to go to visit a person you don't have a contact for at least 8-9 years. How can you rationalize this person is living in Kent because you don't have any active contacts, etc.? He wasn't unable to answer any of those questions. Then, based on that information, in my professional opinion, in my professional judgment, I was thinking there is an element of underlying condition. So this is why I proceeded to complete the mental capacity assessment. But during the assessment process, he was able to give me the information in a way, but that wasn't sufficient to establish he has capacity. This is why initially I had the impression that he lacks capacity. However, there is an element of fluctuating capacity.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with you, but the incident was started from the confusion or the delirium episode of David.
Possible. Yeah, possible. Yeah.
Okay, possible. So while we dealing with this case, or we are going to approach that patient to discharge from the care home to the home. So you made a plan. So is there any need to do anything to substantiate the David is all right? Because the case was started from the possible confusion from the David.
Delirium. Yeah.
Delirium. So it was started from that point, but we are getting the conclusion like Mary is moving to home with David. So nothing else need to be mentioned about David to, you know.
Because
You
David needs to make the decision. This is why we need to
Okay.
assess his ability to make the decision.
Okay.
The mental capacity assessment, you can only do a mental capacity assessment if there is a decision needs to be made. And the decision here David needs to make is how he is going to meet his needs. That was the decision. So this sometimes the meeting the needs and the accommodation can overlap. So for example, you are sending someone to a care home for meeting his needs, isn't it? Because he has he or she has the eligible need for care.
Yeah.
So however, for meeting that needs, you need to have a suitable form of accommodation. That is a care home. So there is the overlap.
That is, and at the same time, there is that boundaries of the marriage. Marriage is a very powerful, what is that called? And I want my wife back with me, and I do have the capacity. I can make the decision for my wife because I am the husband. That is what, and that's supporting that.
On top of that, the powers of there was another powers of attorney holder as well, the attorney, and that lady was also suggesting. I completely agree with David because
All right.
sometimes there can be a dispute. If there are two attorneys, they may have different views. But luckily for this case, the attorney was also in agreement.
All right.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.